No one asked? No? Hello. Jeremy, are we on? Excellent. Well, good afternoon. My name is Molly Lout, and I work in the mayor's office. We're going to stand by for just a few moments to see if other folks trickle in or log in so that we can start talking about community development block grants.
What's it?
You said, put your feet up on it.
No.
I hear you feel white. On the floor.
Unless it's a chair that's meant
That's not the-
for reclining.
Yes. Okay, so in order to honor your time, I guess we'll go ahead and get started since this is a community conversation. Feel free to chime in at any time. And so as I stated before, my name's Molly Lout. I work in the mayor's office along with Kevin Steinmetz from the mayor's office, who's our community development block grant facilitator. So together, Kevin and I facilitate the grant that comes from HUD. Here's a few basics about community development block grants. So this program that we're showing funding for, these programs will begin October 1st of 2022 and will run for a full year. Our 2022 allocation is estimated to be $329,172. And the primary purpose of these grants are decent and affordable housing, suitable neighborhoods, and economic opportunity. If you don't want to take notes, I'd be more than happy to send you these slides when we're all done, so you don't have to scribble. So let's talk a little bit about eligible activities. They include affordable housing, such as renovations of homes to create new home ownership opportunities, minor repairs for homeowners or renters, renters assistance. Is that still a thing?
Yeah.
Even without?
Yeah, just surge during.
Gotcha. And down payment assistance. Public services, food pantry assistance, which Greenwood has historically done a lot of that. Senior services, childcare and youth services, and also job training. In the economic development categories, we can improve facades for businesses and do capital investment. For public facility improvements, we mostly focus on, or community development block grants mostly focus on ADA improvements for parks, for streets, and intersections. We can also build and renovate shelters and community centers. So here are the goals of the plan we put together from 2019, which is the beginning of our relationship with these grants, to 2023. Safe and decent and affordable housing, help the most vulnerable households, invest in public infrastructure, and advocate for fair housing. So this comes to why we are here. And that's to facilitate a conversation about the challenges specific to Greenwood and Greenwood residents, and what we're facing as we emerge from the pandemic, to date from 2020 on. We had an interesting timing on our block grants in that our first cycle was the fall of October of 2019. So literally 2 months before the pandemic was upon us, we were brand new. And Kevin was facilitating this grant with the help of a consultant. And then everything closed down, locked down, the federal government's process changed, they added CARES Act money into it, and the whole thing got crazy. So hopefully starting with this cycle, we're getting back to what is the normal annual block grants. So mixed in what we've done with a lot of CARES Act money and a lot of block grant money is rent assistance and food assistance. We focused on those items. And really what we learned is Greenwood specifically doesn't have a lot of services surrounding housing. So our biggest challenge, I think, with this grant is finding qualified organizations to help basically spend the money. So it's been a big challenge, especially since COVID has sort of disrupted and gotten us off track. So that's where we have been. So I guess I would open it up to everyone online, and in the room here is, so what do you think are our biggest challenges that we're facing?
So far.
I-
So tell people.
Are they on this one?
I don't, they're not on the slide.
Sure, so Kevin's gonna, there you go.
Go ahead. Yeah, so for those online, this is Kevin Steinmetz with the city. And I wanted to go through what we have invested. Essentially, as Molly put, we've had essentially 4 years of distribution over 2 years, because they basically got doubled for the CARES Act. So our biggest investment was, and continues to be Northeast Park, which is by Northern Park subdivision and by Northeast Middle School. We completely redid the skate park there, and in already funded projects that should start this summer, we're putting a trail around the entire outside of the neighborhood to connect those houses to the park, and then putting all new shelter and bathroom into the park. It's an area that qualifies because of its demographics for direct investment. We've done substantial investment with Greenwood School Corp. We invested roughly $30,000 in ADA accessible playground equipment and $100,000 in family case care coordinators, essentially counselors, with hopes that that could be the seeds of full-time positions there, although that's yet to be seen. We've done a large amount of rental assistance with the COVID money, $100,000 with United Way. We have another large grant with Ivy Tech that is funding certificates in designated industries with the idea of giving people paths into growing trades that we know there are jobs for. We have then done a number of smaller grants. We've done with Gleaners directly. We've done with Our Lady of the Greenwood Food Pantry, St. Francis and Clare Food Pantry. All those have gone exceptionally well.
Yes.
We've got other grants with Bridges Alliance and their Circles program. We've done some stuff with Kick It, which is a child homelessness organization. And I'm sure that I'm forgetting a few others,
I think you got them.
but those are a lot of the larger ones. So I guess I'll pivot back. I'm always question for those here and online. I think there's other questions too as you go down, right, Lily?
Yes.
Let's say.
So are there any challenges that you see as we emerge from this pandemic that we should be considering?
Molly, Kevin, can you hear me?
Yep.
It's Leanne with Habitat. Hello, thank you so much for inviting us. First, am I supposed to be able to see you too? Because I can't see you.
No, not necessarily.
Not particularly.
Just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing your smiling faces.
We're the podium.
So I have a couple of questions, comments, maybe. I know we talked about this whenever you first got your first grant and Habitat couldn't fit into the parameters because we weren't building within the city limits of Greenwood. But it sounds like that you've got with other county organizations and helped them with specific things in their organizations that's helping low-income families and housing. Is that correct? Like bridges?
Yeah. So let me clarify that, Leanne. We have worked with organizations that do serve the county, but the clarification on that is that we're serving Greenwood residents through this organization. So for example, the $100,000 that we gave United Way all went to people who live for rental assistance, all went to people who live within our taxing district. So the Ivy Tech program is actually happening at various campuses, but there are people who are domiciled within the city of Greenwood. So one reality, and it is definitely a challenge we've had to face, is that most of the service organizations or institutions that serve a lot of Greenwood residents are located primarily in Marion County or some in southern Johnson County.
Thank you for clarifying that. I have a follow-up. So we are getting ready. We actually have a piece of property in the city limits of Greenwood. Yay! And we are going to be building a Habitat house for a family in Greenwood. Is there anything that you see relates to getting some of this money for that home build?
I think that it definitely is something that we've looked at and looked at doing before. I know other communities in towns, apologies, our technical consultant, we should have the dates mixed on this. So she missed the time. She's gonna log on here in a little bit. She's gonna go to her office and log on. So she'll be able to answer exactly how that would take. I just wanna, do you have the address? I wanna make sure it's actually in Greenwood. There's a lot of stuff, including some of our guests today, probably have Greenwood addresses, but you don't live in Greenwood.
Is it the one you were looking at, Leanne, on Main Street?
It's 653 East Pearl Street.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. That is in fact in the city of Greenwood, so that would be good.
Yeah.
And we'll forward that question to, that's exactly what this meeting is for. we will, as soon as Alicia logs on, we'll talk about what is eligible under that.
Okay, I have one more question. Sorry, I'm just full of them.
No, we just love that there's questions. The first couple of years we did this, we had no one.
Oh,
Literally the
okay.
first year, we had to bring employees down just so we could say we had some.
We are currently looking at putting together a home repair program for low-income families. It's in its very infancy. I mean, we're just gathering information and putting stuff together. Where we get a lot of calls from people who cannot afford to do home repairs for home improvements in their home, whether it's the elderly or whatever. And so we are, like I said, looking at putting together this program. Is that something that would fall under these guidelines as well?
Absolutely. And the Habitat out of Marion County already does this, correct?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So, it's absolutely something, and it's one of the things we are looking for is that we have definitely struggled to find a partner on the housing side of this, and beyond just the construction of new housing, we want to focus more on the rehabilitation and revitalization of existing housing, and both of those, you're building on a lot, it seems, in an established area on East Pearl, and then your fixings of housing is something we really want to do. We did give a grant actually to some people who want to build ramps out of a church from Indianapolis. They decided, I believe, to just do it outside of the grant, but that is another thing in Marion County they've done, is making aging in place improvements a priority with this. And
So Leanne, it's right in the wheelhouse of what these grants should be used for. And you know as well as anyone, the availability to build new things, which is not what these grants are meant for, but to repurpose and rehabilitate existing spaces that help blighted areas improve.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, a lot of calls that I get to my office are specifically for that. They just can't afford a contractor. They don't have the ability to know where to turn. It's just, there's a need for it. So we decided we might give it a whirl.
I think that would be great. So that's awesome.
Okay. So my final question on this stuff, moving forward after this, is this something that I would get with you two to discuss further, or what would be the next steps?
yes.
Yes.
Let me go back to my schedule.
So, yes, so applications come out, I believe. Timing of the application, I think. What?
It's the 6th.
Of June?
May.
Okay,
I think that's why we did it.
That's right.
Yeah, May 6th.
that's why we had 2 meetings back to back. So yes, so May 6th, the application will be available. There's about a month where you can submit them. And then we have a block grant committee that reviews the request. And our track record so far has been, we have not received as many grants as we have money for. We have great funding and no established organizations who can take advantage of it. So, you know,
Particularly on the 2 projects you mentioned, which would be building projects.
yes.
We've had some decent success, particularly with stuff that was CARES eligible, because that's more flexible rules on social services, but we've yet to find a great partner on the CapEx, we'll call it, repair and maintenance side of this.
Yeah,
And as a default, that is why, and it's good, it's part of a longer strategy, we've been reinvesting the funds back into community assets within Northern Park.
Yes, because our option is to use them or lose them, so we opted to use them while we continue to reach out to the community to find projects that fit better with this particular grant.
Thank you.
Leanne, you're driving right toward what we're looking for.
Yay, go.
Yay!
Okay, I have one final question. I know my last one was supposed to be my final one, but I have another one. Apologies. So in the parameters of this grant with our new program, is it something that would help fund us getting a position to spearhead that?
I think that will get a little bit more difficult, and we can ask Alicia on that. What it absolutely can do is fund like the repair program that you're saying, fund the actual contracts for repair through that.
Yes, and so only 15% of our total grant can go toward services. The rest needs to go toward actual, Alicia always calls them bricks and sticks, things that you build or renovate. That's why we built a skate park and a shelter and a trail. So of the $329,000, only 15% can go toward funding positions that help us with like the schools and the Ivy Tech program, service oriented things, the stuff for Bridges Alliance all falls under that 15%. So in terms of funding, we typically have spent all of that 15%. And what's left is the actual building things. But this is all very encouraging because this conversation is starting to gain momentum. And like Leanne, you're thinking along the lines of what these grants were designed for.
Yeah, so there's roughly 50,000 that we have yearly in a pot. Now, we don't use it all, it can get rolled over, we do it a little over. We roughly have a $50,000, what I'll call services type basket when it's not a COVID situation. Previously, we've been able to kind of triple down on services because that cap was waived for the public health crisis, but that has since reverted back to its previous
Yes,
15%. So there's roughly 50,000 money
carried
in
over.
bucket that can be used for services.
Before I forget, both of us forgot a sign-in sheet. Would you folks online mind getting into the chat and telling me your name, your organization, and your email address, please, so that we have that information? And I have a sign-up sheet here for everyone in the room. So, back to the question of housing. So to support affordable housing, what type of housing service is most needed in our community? Can you get that up there? So they can see what. So should we fix up the housing we have? Help new homeowners afford the housing we have? Help current homeowners improve their housing? Or something else?
To speak on that, Alicia, I see that you're on now. Alicia, you see that you're on now. Leanne works for Habitat and stated about the desire. They have a new build in Greenwood. They secured land in the city. And they also are looking at a fix-up program for existing homeowners. Assuming they meet the low mod standards, these would both be eligible expenses, correct?
New construction is an ineligible expense under CDBG, I'm sorry to say. Only renovation is eligible. So that's the reason for the questions.
So the building would be no, but on the rehab program, it could definitely fund that.
Correct. But if that home buyer needed some assistance with down payment assistance, that would be an eligible cost.
Okay.
There you go.
So, with all things HUD and federal, there's always little tricks to it.
She also asked if a staff person could be funded to help manage the renovation of housing.
Yes, if you can tie it to the beneficiaries. So if you have a staff person who benefits for it, or it's a rehab administration, but you have to show the homeowners, low-income homeowners that you're helping serve by managing that program.
And we could just fund that person's time when it was with Greenwood homeowners, correct? Not downtown and stuff.
Correct.
Thank you for that.
So what do we think about the housing type that we need? Any thoughts?
Well, since I work in the housing industry, there is a definitely need for affordable housing. I'm just going to put it out there. You know, we have families. This housing market in Johnson County is just absolutely crazy. And our last two house builds, we have to adjust for their income. The appraisals that are coming in, we're talking $250,000 for a Habitat house. It's insane. So there's definitely a need, and I applaud you for looking at this stuff.
Yeah, Dan, I would encourage you on that new lot. It's not exactly CDBG, but it is going to influence your build. Greenwood's building and design changes, or building and design code has changed probably since you've been in the last one. It now has a unified development ordinance. There's 3 different paths as far as building, design, and architectural standards. If you're going to need, anyways, if you need waivers, or if you're going to need a variance, or if you need to just simply figure out how to work within the current system, which is one person we know in Old Town currently did, because of the neighborhood, you're going into an existing neighborhood, which is different than a new build. Strongly encourage you to reach out to Gabe. This is actually Nelson. Yeah, I believe it's Nelson. Gabe is our new planning director, and he's very capable and can help you plan for this up front. I'd hate for you to have kind of an off-the-shelf plan that didn't meet any of the design standards, and then have somebody, then run into the problem there.
Okay, thank you for that. I do have one follow-up question. Molly, when you were going through the bullet points, you said public infrastructure.
Yeah.
So, my counterpart in Boone County, not that we're doing this or whatever, just general, she has just purchased a huge plot of property, and they are going to be developing it. And she is working with her local officials to help with that. Is that something that if we did buy, let's just say I don't know, big acre plot, and we were gonna develop it and subdivide it to have a little habitat community, is that something that would fall under this? As far as infrastructure?
Alicia?
My instinct is to say no, but let me check. Because it's still part of the new construction, but if you're going from a house to a street, it's part of either the rehab of the house or the new construction of the street. So it would only be if you're talking about building the connections between the house and the street connection, it has to be part of a renovation. So it couldn't be part of a new construction. I do know of other communities that have gotten findings for putting in new infrastructure for builds, but I don't know why. So that's why I'm like, let me check what it would do to put the street connections in.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so why don't we go back to the question, does anyone have any thoughts about the type of housing that we need most? One more, there,
And then you've got 2 more questions.
two more questions, okay.
Or if not, we can move on to.
Anyone have any thoughts on this one?
I mean, to me, these nail it. I mean, I guess you want more specific.
Just what do you think is our greatest need?
I mean, what Leanne has said, this is Leslie Doherty, Bridges Leanne. I mean, what you said in terms of the housing market, it's just, yeah, it's way beyond what people can afford. I mean, a starter home that people used to buy back in the 60s or 70s, you know, they could, right, could afford it, and now that's not doable anymore. So fixing up, this way, you know, keeping things in place is important, but trying, if there's turnover, I think a key piece is you have to watch the gentrification, right? And make sure that people can still afford what's done after it's fixed up. So, I mean, I do know, I've heard of examples of cities that say, okay, this is gonna remain at this level for so many years after you fix up the house, to help maintain some of that. And I think you guys have done some of that in some areas, I'm not sure, but I thought I heard of that. But anyway, I mean, that's another piece, just looking forward, as you renovate homes, how do you keep them at a level that people can still afford it and maintain that neighborhood feel, right? Right?
Do you have specific guidelines or parameters that defines low-income housing and affordable housing? To me, it's such a blurred in the middle, you know, it's just kind of a moving process. Are there any specific parameters what's defined as affordable housing, and then anything under that obviously would be low-income housing?
Sure, there definitely are at a state and federal level. What we operate off, Alicia, primarily is not necessarily the housing, but it's the people served. So it's low to moderate income. That is updated, I believe, yearly. And what is it currently for Indianapolis Metro for a family of 4? Is it like 60,000, Alicia? 62?
I'd have to look it up, but yeah, it's about that for a family of 4. So it's
So-
relatively high.
Those are adjusted by MSA.
So we focus on low to mid income people and how many are served by the program that you are proposing. Does that make sense? So we don't focus on if the house is affordable or if it is not. That's not what this program is. It's serving the greatest number of people who are low to mid income levels to help them get into a home, save, you know, help them with a down payment or improvements or programs that
to
help
do all
them.
these things that you mentioned at the start, to
Absolutely.
further all those goals, which I guess is, you know, mentioned with folks from Bridges here, which I think might go to that next question. Workforce was one of your questions, again, families living paycheck to paycheck. What programs or services would make it easier with day to day? If anyone had any feedback about that. Molly mentioned specifically, the last 2 years, we've been doing a lot of stuff with CARES Act exemptions and COVID, so we focused heavily on food banks, which I never imagined exhaust, you know, would be 30,000 at Our Lady of Cleveland, and we exhausted all that.
Yes,
10,000 at Cleaners, another 10,000 at St. Francis and Clare. We're gonna exhaust essentially all of that. So there's definitely kind of
the
some
need
hidden-
was there.
hidden hunger, how would we call it that? Then also we tried to do some different workforce involvement things through things like Bridges and
Ivy
Ivy Tech
Tech
and et cetera. So
schools.
on these questions, I think really this one sums up your other one too.
Sure.
Families living paycheck to paycheck or no paycheck, no paycheck. what programs and services would make it easier to live day to day.
I have a question. Like in 2017-18, there were some foreclosures here in Greenwood, okay? And there could have been, like in my case, I could have tried to purchase the foreclosed home. However, it was a lot in despair, needed a lot of repairs. So if someone, a family is going through bridges, and this is an example question. If someone was going through bridges and they were working towards, their financial literacy and building their income and taking their courses and that type of thing, would this be something that they could apply for if they wanted to purchase? Get that down payment for a foreclosed home?
Yeah, we don't have I can't speak to the foreclosure per se. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens with foreclosures and individual protections and where it's at and what stage, and if it also involves a bankruptcy, et cetera. But as far as down payment assistance, it is something that is eligible. I think Alicia and Rand help run those for other communities. They have been very successful. We haven't had a partner who really kind of works in that, who would do the intake, vet them and whatnot. But again, I'll let Alicia correct me wrong, but down payment assistance is a very commonly used tool to use some of these grants.
So when you're speaking of partner, are you saying that it could be a nonprofit agency that could partner?
Exactly.
Okay.
That would be ideal.
That's exactly what he's referring
Okay.
to. So someone to facilitate the program.
I mean, I've read just recently in places in Ohio and different other states are getting nonprofits to partner to do that, and I didn't know if that's out.
Exactly, that's the goal here,
Okay.
is to involve nonprofits that are already established to facilitate these programs. So I don't know if an individual homeowner would come in because there's
Yeah.
no one to facilitate the program, if that makes sense.
Right.
Correct. Alicia, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, well, I mean, I was gonna say, it's helpful to have a nonprofit, because when you're doing down payment assistance, particularly in the scenario when you're talking about foreclosed homes, you want to make sure that, they can afford, that the right underwriting is done, that they can afford the repairs, that they're not going to be overwhelmed by a mortgage that maybe covers the repairs and the purchase of the property. And so there's just some of the due diligence that happens with a nonprofit that some of those nonprofit partners that have experience in working in the finance world have, that they can bring and work directly with those home buyers.
There's another question I have too. Human Services of Johnson County is up off of 31, just past Jefferson. Does Greenwood have a Human Services? Because I know Human Services has listings of housings of people that say we're on Section 8 or we're going to get on Section 8.
That is the biggest single challenge we can incorporate this. There's about 125,000 people who live in the top 3 townships, the northern 3 townships. If you include our greater kind of Greenwood metro points, you include Perry and Southport and Franklin Township, there's 260,000. However, almost all the services, the legacy ones in Johnson County are located in Franklin.
Yeah,
This goes back to that, for most of Johnson County's history, Franklin was about a 20,000 person city, still is a 20,000 person city. And Greenwood really didn't exist. And then the urban core of Indianapolis, Franklin Township, Perry, and let's see what I'm missing, Decatur suffer from this as well, and that primarily assets in Marion County or Center Township.
And that's one of the challenges that that has become very obvious since we've been facilitating this grant is
makes sense to
the
me.
services just aren't here.
Trying to connect it.
But that is how we support Greenwood residents, even though
Through,
they may use those services that are physically
In the county,
located in a different place, like the IT Tech program. Obviously,
Right.
they're not taking the classes here, but they reside here, so it's part of a job and training program for Greenwood residents, which is using really a state network. Texas Station, so we're using
Correct.
it.
So, yes, we are,
So yeah, that you would hit the head on the hardest thing, and that there is need here, there's resources here, both private and public, but there isn't the nonprofit infrastructure to connect those dots. And this is one
Yeah.
case where geography does matter. You just can't get somewhere, you can't transport somewhere, you can't walk somewhere, you can't just catch a ride somewhere easy or bum a ride. It becomes very difficult to make it all the way down to human services, and frankly, with, say, County Line and 31, true.
Now, you talked about the constructing of the trails, the connection. And I know where I live from 31 and Worthville Road, I know there is some type of path that can connect, but I don't know how far it goes. Is that, because that's within the city.
Yeah, so you
Absolutely.
can go, we've built, 50 some miles, I don't know what it is. It's a lot. You can get on Worsville Road. I'm always a bike rider. I don't partake in that life or death game. But you can, if you're on Worsville Road, between Tracy Trail and Worsville Road, especially with the stage 2 coming on, you can get from Honey Creek all the way to the eastern city limits, which is a couple miles east of 65. Tracy Trail can get you all the way up to here, essentially.
we are all the way to County Line Road.
Is
But-
there a link that can show us?
Yeah, there's maps online. They're constantly.
Actually, in the lobby, I will show you the
Okay.
trail map that
See,
we
you got
just
the right
completed.
Because I've been trying to walk it, then I get turned around when I go through the trailer park and I end up over by Yorktown Farm Apartments. And I try to find.
There's a great trail that you can walk north up to Smith Valley
Or
Road,
bike.
and then you can walk all through downtown. It's all connected now.
Okay.
And soon we'll have Madison Avenue connected all the way up to,
All the way to Friday.
all the way to Fry. We have a great trail system, and I have a great map for you, both
Okay.
online and printed.
Okay.
For you.
Awesome.
But that does hit something we've seen, and I'm sure it's in your circles program, you see it too, is that oftentimes the folks that we're trying to invest in, especially if there's a vehicular, lack of vehicle or whatever, really struggle with transportation, even just to a job interview or to a social service agency or to a food bank or whatever. That's been a challenge.
Now, I've used Johnson County Access a lot, so I'm wondering, well, have they been getting more buses? And
Yeah,
Because
that's.
it used to be it take you hours to get to.
I don't know what their growth plan is. The city has through the loss, or has funded Access Johnson County for years. We make a pretty big investment. I don't know what it is. It used to fund Indigo routes that went through Greenwood, but when the county trustee or township trustee did not allow us to vote on the red line expansion, Indigo removed bus service from Johnson County.
Yes,
So,
when the Perry Township trustee refused to put it, so we couldn't get a connection.
Oh, contiguous.
So Indigo won't go, they won't allow Greenwood, for example, to vote on transportation until Perry Township votes on transportation, and Perry Township will not put it on the ballot. So we don't have the opportunity to put it on the ballot. So it's unfortunate.
Perry and our central, or in Pleasant, right? Pleasant Township here.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's in Perry, it's Pleasant.
Is it Pleasant
It's
Township?
Pleasant, the one
I
right
misspoke.
away. Yeah.
But I know that it's the one north of County Line
Well,
Road
that's-
that's impacting us.
Yeah, so anyways, we've even invested in some of the initial soft costs of Rapid through the redevelopment commission, but we currently are in battles with local and at the state and others to get those connections made.
Yes. But the mayor sits on the Metropolitan Planning Board
Correct.
to hopefully impact that. So far, no.
How are we doing on time? We still got about 15 minutes, right?
Yes, so
Any local businesses and worker space? Any questions from online? So we said this is just it.
It's an open forum.
And Alicia, the purpose of this forum, because you weren't here, was to gather was to tell people what we were doing, but also gather input before our next round of grants, correct?
That is correct.
And we'll also probably influence our next plan, because Molly pointed out, we're not very far away from the next 5-year plan.
Yes.
That is also correct.
Yeah. See, I love public input.
We do actually love public input. So,
I just, hi everyone, so I'm Amanda Stevens Holmes, I'm chair of the Johnson County Democratic Party here in Johnson County. Thank you so much for hosting this. I'm by no means an expert, I'm learning a lot about the county in general. But I will say that I continue to hear everywhere I go, the challenges facing local businesses and workers that, just to echo what Leanne and Leslie have said, is that from an economic development standpoint, we cannot continue to have service industry employees that don't live in this county, that can't afford to live in this county. So I definitely think that help new homeowners afford the housing we have is the key goal, I think, that I would like to see. When I hear other people say should be a key focus of these grants.
great.
Yeah.
And
So,
thank you for voting today.
oh yeah, I did vote today. My boss's wife is the court, Trina, so I have to vote, or Terry will be very upset.
That's true.
He's
I
all
love
about
my sticker.
participation. She likes to see some new people on the But couple comments on that is, the first is that, yeah, we know from other studies, about 24,000 people before COVID leave Greenwood and parts of White River Township every day to go to work. If you think about non-school age children, especially for young women, that's pretty much everyone. And the test that I gave to Christian Maslowski, that you may know, and some of the other people, is walk around your neighborhood if you live in Greenwood and see, if it's not remote work, how many people actually work in Greenwood. And the answer is going to be very, very small amounts. So we have a challenge, and this again goes to some of the other stuff about geography. We've got a lot of employed people who leave the city to work. And the flip side of that, as we've grown over the last decade, is that we have a growing employment base, but a lot of the folks who work here don't live here. And so that creates a transportation challenge. And connecting more with the broader Indian region would help solve that by matching jobs and employment. Which, from what I understand, part of the reason why the Indigo route originally started was to the mall and help that matching jobs and people. And that's a real challenge, especially with gas at $3.9. And so I guess circling back to this program, our strategy has been, and as we promulgate the next plan, to hit, where's that slide rolling? To answer this question, for families living paycheck to paycheck, what services and programs make it easier to improve day-to-day life? We've done that through rental assistance during COVID, when a lot of people lost work. We've done that through food banks. We've done that through trying to do some of these more human capital development through bridges and the education and investing in schools. And then we have also, because we've not been able to kind of really get, at this point, a good system for individual kind of home repair or down payment assistance program, have invested in a neighborhood on our northeast side that is attainable for low to moderate, has a lot of low to moderate income people per census, and has homes that are attainable and are improving the quality of life in there by investing in one of our neighborhood parks, which oftentimes don't get and aren't eligible for like the big redevelopment dollars that you see like down here at the old part.
Very true, Kevin. So, if you think of ideas after today,
Or if you wanna come tomorrow,
or if you wanna come tomorrow, which we're gonna
Back
do
to
the
back.
same exact thing. Back-to-back meetings, you can always drop us an email
or Zoom in,
or Zoom in if you're just dying to
Like-
hear us talk
like
again.
Gail and Jim and Leanne,
That's true.
unknown iPhone.
We're waving at you from here, guys.
Yeah, even though our cameras aren't on. So the email address is CDBG, I know it's original, at greenwood.in .gov. Also, will you mind flipping to the end slide?
Sure.
The
Oh, there you go.
website where the application will be available and all the information we have.
Doesn't it say what projects we've done too, it's on there?
Yes, projects we've done, all the information that we have available about CDBG and the opportunity to get on an email list, which I'm guessing most of you are on already. Is at greenwood.in.gov/ wait for it, CDBG.
And we're a new entitlement community, we've hired Alicia Projects on this for years to help us out. But as I said, questions and emails and stuff are worth it. I think we ended up settling into building the first skate park with CDBG funds. I don't know, it should, definitely Indiana, but maybe, I'll take the greater Midwest. And the people in California are pretty good, I'm sure they've done something like that.
They probably have.
But I'm gonna at least take the upper Midwest, like the Great Lakes states. So which was a pure accident. How that happened.
And
So no question.
I have to say, much to our surprise, Kevin drives around often looking at all our parks and our projects, and our skate park is very well used. It is really amazing if you're ever out and about Northeast Park.
Northeast Park, even though you can't get to it from any major road, is exceptionally,
It's
well
a little
used.
difficult to find, but once you do find it, it's absolutely delightful. Those guys are really good.
Bricks project, signage, road,
Sure, true.
stealing your son.
Yes, so I have a sign in, if you wouldn't mind.
Alicia, anything to add before I log off here?
Nope, you two have done an amazing job. Thank you.
Well, we're just ready to be great compliance officers. All right.
Thank you all so much.
You bet, thank you for coming out
How do
today.
I
And
stop
we'll
this
so there's
year?
a map at the,
Yeah, I'll show you that to you.
Oh, yeah. Jeremy, if I just leave, is that good?
I understand.
Yes.
Yes, you can stop.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. We appreciate Greenwood IT's
Support.